To discuss further the hiring of David Cox, we bring in Ruthie Polinsky. Ruth?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at URI this season.
Yeah.
Kind of got a feel for the guy.
What was your view on David Cox as the associate head coach? Do you think this was the right move?
Yeah, I think from what I've learned about him over the course of the year, I think he's really just going to be the key to that continuity that are striving for in terms of building on Hurley's foundation. I think a lot of those guys are really, really, really close with him, and that starts with his really strong recruiting. He's really well connected within especially the DC area. He was an AAU coach there, and then he also was an assistant coach at Georgetown. So he's really a tremendous recruiter in terms of building his relationships with the players that he brings in, which I think is just why we're going to see a very smooth transition here.
All the players are here, and you think URI would be picked towards the top of the A-10 again next year. Do you think with this class, what they bring back, obviously next year they should have a good year, do you think URI can be a perennial NCAA tournament team 3, 4, 5 years down the road?
They're going to be young. I mean, they have Jeff Doughton and Cyril Langevin, who are going to be juniors. And then they have Fats, obviously, who's going to be a sophomore. And then they have Christian Thompson coming back from injury.
And then the freshmen.
And then, of course, we have this amazing freshman recruiting class. But, of course, you know, you don't know how freshmen are going to come in. You don't know how the team's going to mold together. I think it would be. I think they have the potential to win the A-10. In terms of getting the NCAA tournament, I think only time will tell in terms of how they mesh as a team.
I was told that this was a legitimate search, a nationwide search. It wasn't just, Cox, this is your job. We're going to put on the charade for all the fans to pretend we're looking at other people. And that he had a really good interview. Do you think when Thor had that press conference 2 weeks ago, he thought Cox would get it? Or do you think it was an even slate, all the candidates equally?
I think he knew that he was going to be leading the pack.
Sure.
Just because of so much positive feedback from, I know, the players in terms of David Cox and from Hurley. You know, you get a recommendation from a head coach that's putting it all over the media that he wants Dave Cox to be the head coach. It's kind of hard to say, well, Dan Hurley, you don't really have a lot of credibility here. So, you know, I think that they had a good idea.
And how much of an influence was the pressure on social media, all the recruits saying, I want to play for Cox and no one else? Do you think it forced URI's hand a little bit?
I think it was interesting, didn't you? I've never really seen that much vocalization. It may be the day and age we're living in, but from incoming recruits who have the potential to be like, hey, I could leave. I think it was an interesting move on their part because if they were to transfer, if Cox wouldn't have gotten the job and they would transfer, the blame would be on Thor. It wouldn't be on the players because they could say, hey, we came out and said we wanted Dave. So that was an interesting move on their part. Did it work? Did that play a part in Thor's decision? I don't know, maybe, but there's no way for us to know that.
And the players would have had to sit out a year anyway and then play for a new coach that they weren't signing up for anyway. So it's just the nature of college basketball. It is. Players get penalized for a year to transfer, and coaches can get up and bounce.
One other thing about Dave that we should mention is his personality, just as a guy, a man in the community, because Hurley was just so liked. I think Dave is a little bit more even-keeled. He was kind of the toned down. He kind of toned down Hurley a little bit over the years. So it's going to be interesting to see how he coaches, but from what I know, from what I've learned, they have a very similar coaching style. So we're going to see a lot of that amazing defense, play hard, play tough. So that's going to be, I can't wait.
Doughton kind of was like, well, I think he's harder on them than we would think.
A lot on the guards, I've heard. I've heard he's really hard on the guards.
Former point guard for William & Mary. All right, Ruthie, good stuff. Thanks so much for coming in.